Well, hi, this is John and Julian from New Connections, and today we're going to have a conversation about, what are we talking about today, John?
We'll find out, won't we?
We'll find out?
We'll find out.
Okay. But I think we can start with a target in mind, and that's a healthy, loving relationship with your character defects.
What does that mean?
What does that mean, John?
What does it mean to you?
You're the author. So what that means is I go back to Dan Siegel's.
Let me put a context to that, because that's an idea that comes out of doing the work of the 12 steps. The language of it is the language of 12-step work. They have this term called character defects as being the source of your anguish as a human being.
Yes.
And so, like in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, a character defect is something that drives you to drink. An emotional lack of skill, a spiritual discomfort.
Can you go through that process of the character defect speaks up inside of you, and then you go want to drink?
I think the 12 steps is that each of you uncovers and decides and declares your own character defects. You can't do it. You have suspicions beforehand, but it's really about you discovering for yourself what you are made of. That's the 4 steps. You do an entire personal inventory. It's thorough, and it's about, in AA, it's about you explore your resentments, your fearfulness, and your sex conduct. Those are all good things for everyone to do, to look at. And you create the narrative, your own narrative that you create, your story about who you have been and the trouble and it has brought. So, and my thinking in the end is that the process is about, especially in CODA, which is the addiction, is the Codependence Anonymous, is that we're addicted to. It's hard to, again, each person defines the nature of their compulsion. For me, I was largely compliant to the people I was in relationships with. And so my character defects were unique to me, kind of. Were common to other people, but you discover this narrative of who you think you are and the damage it's created in your life and the lives of others. And then you do something about it. And the most productive way to get at it is to what I've come to put together a sentence like: get into a healthy, loving relationship with your character defects. Your fearfulness does not disappear. You just get into relationship and learn to work with it so that fearfulness does not run your life.
Yes.
So you break it down into a family of you distinguish individual patterns of fearfulness, and you get into relationship with them. And then once you do that, there's a whole process for dealing with fearfulness that comes up. You can make a stepwise process. When you recognize fear, you can self-regulate by following this process over and over and over until you get a different result.
And so the 2 models that I bring in that I can relate to that are the adult chair model. That's where inside all of us we have 3 individuals, a child, a teenager, and an adult. And the character defects are often looked at as a teenager. The fears are kind of diffused through all, and fear is not a bad thing. It's just You have to have a good relationship with it. And in the work of Dan Siegel and Bud Craig, there's the idea that the whole point of emotions, the whole point of fear, is to adjust your behavior in a homeostatic way. And that homeostatic process is not just for the internal organism, but for the social organism. So we are a social organism, we're a social mammal, and our well-being, we know through evolution, has been dependent upon having a solid, safe place inside of a social organization. You know, like your friends, your family, things like this have kept us safe and alive against the tigers and lions and bears of the world. And so we know any time that we're doing things for which we might be kicked out of the social organization, all of a sudden our well-being is in danger in a very real way. And so our feelings were evolved. It's called the insular cortex. It's the part of the brain that grew the most in our transition from primates to us. They recently found it has grown the most, and it is the connection between your bodily feelings, which are actually part of emotions, and your cortical thinking. As in, here's the thing: you do something that distances you from others in your social web, and a feeling emerges inside of you. The feeling is to direct the change in behavior to you to go back to homeostasis within your own social organization. To change your behavior. Feelings are there as a result of your own behavior in order to get you to change back to the behavior that'll keep you safe. So, getting into a good, nice, loving relationship with those painful feelings, with those feelings that cause you anxiety, depression, get you back to addiction. And there's a whole thermodynamic argument of how addiction works. We'll get into that later. But the point is that the insular cortex is the technology our species created to get us back into social organization and back into our social web work, to keep ourselves alive by having bodily born feelings. And those are the strongest ones. Wim Hof, I was talking about him on Joe Rogan, he says, feeling is understanding. And he says it kind of really like intensely to help you understand that only when you feel something do you understand something. Only when you feel something internally do you believe it. Once it's up, if it's up here in your prefrontal cortex as just thoughts, you can be skeptical. You can continue. You can always be skeptical. When it's a feeling, it feels like you're close to God. It feels like that God gave you this. It's the wellspring of warmth, that the connection of things that you know to be true with others in your social organization, and it feels good.
So you're not a scientist. This guy is. So he'll do this. I work with people who aren't scientists, and I want people to become their own scientists and work on their own lives. That's what it's about, and that's what he's discovered, and that's what he's telling me too. It is about finding your own narrative. You have to do it. Reading a little science, a little therapy, a little psychology, a little sociology, all of that can help, but it's really you incorporating it in your own language for your own use and trying it out with other people to see if you're understood.
Get in the game.
Yeah. That's part of the healing is really basically human beings just want to be known. They want to be heard and they want to be known. And the people around you already know who you are in a way. They cannot read your mind. They don't have direct access to your emotions, although there's typically a spouse or a parent or a child is really sensitive, more sensitive than they can express or know to your emotional life.
That's that permeable membrane, that emotional permeable
Yeah, we all have
perforated
that.
membrane that allow emotions of others to exude into us and affect us.
And it's kind of so it's critical that you understand for yourself. I think that's where the game is, and that's why most of us live our lives suppressing what we don't like about ourselves. I think I have as a guiding principle, be self-expressed. If you feel something, feel it, and express it.
If you feel something, say something.
Yeah, kind of.
in a healthy way.
It's more workable than. You have to be cautious and make some judgments, but sometimes it is not safe, actually safe, to share your feelings with everyone or anyone. You make some judgments, but the more work the more you do the work, the better judgments you'll make about what you can share and show. And some of us, with my experience, I had no idea what people meant when they use the word feel. It's okay.
Yeah.
You won't eat much. So that's kind of going back to you have to know. You have to know for yourself. I can't tell you what your character defects are. I can kind of guess sometimes, but that does you no good. Even if I guess right, and most of us don't guess right. So it's sort of like up to you to do the inquiry, take it on. I like starting with fearfulness, resentment, because those are easy to notice. They're big, they're loud, they take over, and that can lead you to a facility and the skill to discern. There you go. A more subtle sensation. So that's what I have to say on that. What else?